So apparently the WWE made the news again when they did an interview with the Star. And in this interview, they basically stated, and I'll read it off right here because I'm currently watching Alex's Hicks, just Alex, video on it. But they said in the interview, and this is what's got people talking, and I quote, this is the interview with the Star, and I quote, this is what they said. For its part, WWE planned, let me reread this, and I quote, this is from WWE's interview with the Star, and I quote, for its part, WWE plans to stay the course. In an exclusive statement provided to the Star, they referenced a bloody women's tag team match put on by the competition, where Penelope Ford and the Bunny, Allie, aka Cherry Bomb, took on Ty Conte and Anna Jay on AEW's December 31st New Year's Eve Smash edition of Rampage. They said that this is not what they are willing to do, that being WWE. And here's what WWE's statement was, and I quote. This is from a report, I think it's from Fightful.com. It says, the WWE statement read, and I quote, this is from WWE's statement to the Star about the tag match on the New Year's Eve Smash edition of Rampage between the women. This is what they said, and I quote. This is from WWE to the Star, that is. They said, and I quote, if you look at the gory self-mutilation that bloodied several women in the December 31st event on TNT, it quickly becomes clear that these are very different businesses. We had an edgier product in the Attitude Era, quote-unquote Attitude Era, and in a 2022 world, we don't believe that type of dangerous and brutal display is appealing to network partners, sponsors, venues, children, or the general public as a whole. Now, Alex, read this off, and if you follow just Alex, formerly Deluxe Man, you know that, YWCers like him and JD and OTRS Central and Solo Monster, despite the differences on certain things when it comes to AEW, whether they are unbiased, whether they show favoritism, whatever, or praise or unpraise or whatever, each and every one of them is very opinionated, and they will not hold back on what they feel needs to be addressed. They will not hold back with giving whatever opinions they want to give. And Alex basically feels, and I'm sure a lot of people will feel the same way, that this statement by WWE, whoever made the statement on their behalf to the Star, in this interview, is hypocritical. Because WWE, yes, as they pointed out, they did have this kind of a product, if not more so, back in the Attitude Era. There's no doubt. But they also had it in the Ruthless Aggression Era. Yeah, they had it in the Attitude and more so in Ruthless Aggression. Because if you think about it, yeah, we had some violent matches in the Attitude Era, but the Ruthless Aggression Era is when it really picked up, if you catch my drift. We saw more violent matches there, or back then I should say, than we saw in the Attitude Era. But when I hear this, and then I hear what Alex is saying, Alex basically is pointing out that the reason WWE is saying this, whoever is saying this on behalf of Vince's, behalf, Vince McMahon's behalf, is because of the fact that they themselves, they want to do it. They want to do it, but they can't because the people that are paying them a lot of money, mostly Fox, basically Fox is paying them more than USA. The people behind Fox that are paying them are in their 50s, or at least at an age range to where they may have considered this kind of stuff as being cool and hip 20, 30 years ago, but now 20, 30 years, 20 years, 30 years later, they don't. And that basically he feels it's because of these people that are in their late 40s, mid 50s, maybe early 60s, that are holding WWE back. Because, like I just said, back then, 20, 30 years ago, they may have been cool with this kind of stuff because, hey, it's, hip and cool to do this. You look at other companies, doing it back then, like ECW. But now that it's 2022, it's basically 30, 20 years later, it's not appealing. It's not appealing. And here's the thing, I will link Alex's video on this, at the end here, but, he does bring up some good points. There's a lot of things nowadays that are supposed to be family friendly, kid friendly, that can be violent too. Spider-Man No Way Home can be violent, if not was violent, period. The Eternals, violent, to an extent. Morbius, is going to be violent. It's going to be dark and violent, very vampirish, horror-like. Doctor Strange, Multiverse of Madness, is being touted as being somewhat the first horror-themed or horror-influenced MCU film coming out in the next few months. You look at WandaVision and and what it was about, especially what was teased at the end, with Wanda herself. These kind of things, these kind of examples of media, multimedia, like Alex pointed out, are supposed to be family, kid friendly, and they have dark tones in them, they have violence in them, that are more so than what you see with what AEW did, or what AEW has done. He even brings up the hit show on HBO Max, Peacemaker, who has John Cena, as in the lead role. That's violent. That's violent. That basically takes a page out of the Suicide Squad movie that it's spun off of. The point is, there are a lot of examples like Alex, and I'm sure JD is going to point this out, and the Slag Daddy, Jeff at OTR Central is going to point this out, and Solomon and all of them. There's tremendous amounts of examples of kid-friendly, family-friendly, PG-13 content out there that is violent as heck. And nobody says anything wrong about it. The only reason, if you want my opinion, that WWE is doing this, the only reason they're putting this statement out is because they believe that, just because they are the bigger entity, when it comes to both wrestling companies, which is true, unfortunately, they are the bigger, more renowned, influential entity out there, promotional-wise. Just because they believe and feel, that they're in that, kind of position, they also believe and feel because of that whatever they say about someone that tries to act like competition or tries to act like, the next, next coming of WCW or ECW or whatever, if they feel that, hey, we can, basically downgrade this promotion, we can make this promotion look bad, we can make it unappealing, unattractive to sponsors and, future sponsors and future network partners and whatever, if they feel that they can find some kind of, opportunity to do so, they will. They will absolutely do it. They will come out and basically try to find something to basically say, yeah, this AEW that you like, guess what? It's not good. It's not what wrestling is about. And when they use key words like network partners, venues, sponsors, general public, if you will, children, because they believe they're in that position to be very influential because they are the bigger of the two wrestling promotions, and unfortunately they are in the eyes of a lot of folks, because they're in that position, they feel that if they say the kind of stuff that they said in this interview to the Star, they know that the Star, being a very well-known publication, that it's going to get out there, and they feel that because they're saying this kind of stuff, it's going to, word of what they're saying is going to get to everybody, it's going to get into the ear of everybody else out there, networks, sponsors, venues, whatever, and they believe because of the fact that they're the bigger of the two, and they feel that they have that influence, they feel that saying this kind of stuff is going to influence, future sponsors, like let's say Snickers, let's say Mattel or whatever, to back away and say, nope, we don't want to deal with, we don't want to be sponsors to AEW if they're going to promote this or they're going to do this. Long story short. Long story short here. Basically, their idea, and it's all part of a plan in their minds. Their idea is if they say this kind of stuff and it gets out there, it's going to make everybody look at the sponsors that have sponsored AEW already. It's going to make everybody look at the network that has AEW on their networks, that being Warner Media and Turner Networks. And to them, they believe it's going to make those networks look down upon them and say, and ask the question, like let's say at a future CES event or a future television network event or whatever, it's going to make them look down upon them and be like, and ask the question of, why would you want to promote this kind of stuff? Why would you want to promote women getting brutally mutilated? And put into that kind of a gory situation. Why would you want this? Why would you want that? And WWE, again, feeling that, hey, we're the bigger entity, we're more influential, we got more pull. And unfortunately, they do, in the eyes of a lot of folks. That's pretty much the truth, unfortunately. WWE believes that if that, ends up being, like the domino effect that takes place, that they feel what's going to happen with everybody looking down upon the Turner Networks and looking down upon Warner Media, who's the people that own the Turner Networks. What they feel and believe will happen is because of them saying this kind of stuff, and it getting out there, that Warner Media is going to take Tony Khan aside one day and say, yeah, Tony, just to let you know, as far as you having these very bloody matches sometimes here and there, that's fine. That's fine with us and everything, but only if you have it on pay-per-view. Because from now on, and because of the, kind of the negative press we're getting thanks to the WWE and everybody else, we feel that it'd be best in the interest of AEW and us if you don't do the blood and guts anymore on the shows that our networks are showing. And that, and in WWE's eyes, they feel that once that happens, and Tony Khan has no choice as a partner but to adhere to that agreement, because again, Turner Networks right now are a major network, a major rival network to USA and Fox. That they believe that what's going to happen, because this would have a domino effect, is it's going to make people open up their eyes and realize, well, wait a minute, without the blood and the guts matches between the men and between the men and sometimes the women, this just feels like a modern day version of WCW. And that's it. That is it. I know that sounds ridiculous coming from me. It sounded like I was just rambling a little bit. But when you get down to it, that's exactly what's going on here. It's not just some of the things that Alex points out, and I'm sure JD and Jeff at OTR Central and Solomon and all of them are going to point out as well. But it's also the fact that they know that if this statement they gave to the Star, a very well-known publication physically and online, gets out, and gets, gets read and everything, and heard by certain people, that it's going to create a domino effect to where everybody's going to look down upon the sponsors that have been sponsoring AEW. It's going to make them look down upon Warner Media and by extension the Turner Networks, and it's going to basically put in WWE's eyes a negative light on those sponsors, a negative light on those networks, on the Turner Networks and Warner Media, to the point where they believe their influence will be enough just by these kind of interviews that they have done, not just here recently, but in the past, to where the Turner Networks will take Tony Khan aside and say, basically tell him exactly what they feel could happen. That they'll take him aside and say, Tony, we don't have no problem with you having violent matches as long as you keep them on pay-per-view, because we don't want to have any more negative press, so we would be appreciative if you don't do it anymore on Rampage or Dynamite, because those are on our networks. That's what WWE wants. That's what WWE wants, believe it or not. That's what they want, and they truly believe they have the kind of pull that they do to make that happen. And unfortunately, because of the position they're in, and as much as people want to hate to admit it, they kind of have a point in believing that. They kind of have a point in feeling that they have enough influence and pull to make that kind of situation happen. So yeah, is it hypocritical on them for saying this, especially with what they're trying to do with NXT 2.0? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's totally hypocritical. But again, it could be a lot of things. Like Alex said, it could be the fact that they want to do it, but they can't because the people that are paying them all this money, mostly from Fox, 30 years ago would be cool with it, but now 20, 30 years later are not about it. They don't want to do it. And it's mostly because of another reason. It's mostly another reason too that some people don't want to bring up. It's the environment we're in right now. It's the environment of council culture. It's the environment of SJWs and all that wokeness. And that because we're in this kind of a time frame where SJWs, council culture, and wokeness, will find anything to latch on to, even stuff from the past, or even something somebody might say by accident. WWE, in their minds, they don't want to take a chance that, hey, we're this big entity in wrestling, and that if we go down this path that AEW does, where we can have occasional bloody, violent matches on our shows, because they're such a bigger target than AEW, it'll basically give something for these woke people, cancel culture, and SJWs to latch onto, and basically, because WWE is that bigger entity and has that bigger target, will basically allow them to try to disavow professional wrestling as a whole, and WWE doesn't want that. WWE, even though they call themselves sports entertainment, they don't want to do that. They don't want that to happen to them or any other promotion out there, independent or minor or whatever. So that's why they don't do it, because if they did it, they know they would be a big target for the council culture, the wokes, and the SJWs. That's another reason in their minds they won't do it. And which it does line up to what Alex says. It's not just because of the people that are paying them, 20, 30 years ago would be cool with it, but now 20, 30 years later are not. But it's mostly because they are afraid. And it's not they're afraid of the people paying them that might get mad. They're afraid at those cancel culture, wokeness, and SJWs coming after them, and the professional wrestling business, because they're the biggest target to come after. And that's pretty much my opinion on it. Pretty much my opinion on, why they don't want to do it. They don't. Or at least my various of opinions. Because one, like I said, knowing that they have this big structure ahead of them, they feel that they have that influence to where it could cause a domino effect and make people look down upon the Warner Media, Turner Networks, and the sponsors that have sponsored AEW, to the point that they feel the networks will take Tony Khan aside and basically, convince him or ask him to, keep the violent matches for pay-per-view only and not put them on the, Rampage or Dynamite or the quarterly specials anymore. As well as the fact that, again, you're in this environment where, if you're a big entity like WWE and you try to do this kind of stuff, it puts a big target on your back. It does. And especially for those that, are about the cancel culture, the woke, and the SJWs. That's it. But yeah, is WWE sounding hypocritical in this? Does it sound like they would like to do it? Absolutely. But there's various factors as to why they said this, in my opinion, and others' opinions. But what do you guys think? What do you think is going on here with WWE? Do you think they are being hypocritical? Do you think to an extent they want to do it but they can't and they're being held back? What are your thoughts? Comment down below, live chat during the premiere, like the video, And I will talk to you later. And super chat during the live, super chat during the premiere, or super chats I should say during the premiere, are greatly appreciated. But again, guys, let me know what your thoughts are, and I'm out.